Everybody again. Thank you again for being here tonight. I can't believe this is year 3 of this event. It feels like it just keeps getting a little bigger every year. And it's because of you and all the support that you continue to give us that we're here. Many of you have supported us from the beginning. Thank you so much for that. Those of you who are new, we hope that tonight will fuel a passion in you for our Street Kit and our mission. Ready to talk louder? Been told I have to talk louder. Is that better? Okay. Okay. I'm not good at that up here, though. This year, I've had the opportunity to connect with several other nonprofit executive directors here in Minnesota and across the country. I've learned that many of them struggle with a strong and committed board. I cannot say this is true of Street Kit. Each board member and volunteer is as passionate about this organization as I am, and without them, none of this would be possible. I'd just like to take a minute to see who these incredible people are. When I call your name, if you could please, sorry, I didn't tell them, stand up and stay standing. Lynn Fields, our assistant director. Annie Jarson, our vice chair. Jennifer Andra, our secretary. Brandy Kneffley, she couldn't be here tonight, but she is our treasurer. Brandon Walter, board member. Carrie Herbert, another board member. Kirsten Dale, board member. Nicole Sanders, board member. Stacy Broughton, board member. Kayla Sather, a new addition, board member. Becky Forrest, board member and also last minute t-shirt and onesie maker. Thank you very much to each of you. Let's again just give this dedicated board a round of applause. A few other thank yous. Holly Shipsky, who could not be here with us tonight, she works at Masonic Children's Hospital, and she has been volunteering to get the kits delivered there. It's about a 2-hour drive back there and back, and so she saves me a lot of time, and I'm appreciative of that. And then Cassie Olson, who is our social media volunteer. I would also like to take a minute just to thank Medtronic, our presenting sponsor this evening. What an incredible gift, and just that they have continued to support us. We are so grateful for their continued support. Thank you to Steve Anderell and Ben Herberg, who have worked together to submit the application each year. Our mission at Street Kit is simple yet complex. We provide hope to families and caregivers who bring their child home from the hospital with a life-saving breathing tube. We do this by giving a complimentary basket filled with comfort and practical items to ease their transition home. Generally, when someone asks about Street Kit, my response is it's the hug that you give someone after you both experience a traumatic, life-changing event. It's a hug that says, I know, I can't fix it, but I know. This kind of hug lasts forever in a person's heart. Back in 2020, when I first began putting things together in a basket I thought would be helpful for families, I didn't realize the impact each item would have. I only knew how overwhelmed I was when we took Sam home for the first time. I tried to think of things that would not only be useful, but things that would normalize something that isn't. The amount of medical supplies you get when you take a child home from the hospital with a trach is so much. I remember Googling how to organize tracheostomy supplies. Guess how many resources I found? One. I found one picture of an over-the-door hanging closet organizer. And to this day, I'm incredibly thankful to that person who took the time to post that. Each kit has 2 organizers with a picture attached showing how we have organized some of Sam's medical supplies. 9 years later, we still use these organizers. Of the 200 plus kits we have gifted, only one of those children has not had a feeding tube. Each kit has a set of feeding tube pads, which are helpful for keeping the site clean and dry. The pads are uniquely made, and along with that, there are small mesh bags to put the dirty pads in so that they won't get lost in the washer and dryer. The bandana bibs are cute, and they're great for keeping away germs from the trade site. The stop sign is for a stroller or car seat to remind people to think twice about touching their child. Often, a simple cold will put these kids in the hospital for weeks. Unfortunately, unplanned hospital stays are almost a guarantee for this kind of kid. The neck pillow comes in handy for those sleepless nights. From feedback, we have heard the neck pillow is also very helpful for doing trach cares. What's that, you ask? Generally twice a day, sometimes more. You have to clean the site so that the area stays free from infection. As you can imagine, this is a very important task. The neck pillow helps the child arch their neck back more effortlessly to do these cares. Adding some hand sanitizer just makes sense. The onesie, sometimes superheroes wear trachs, is of course cute, but also has a practical purpose. Babies with feeding tubes and or lots of other cords are not able to wear a regular onesie. The side snap onesie allows a space for these cords to come out of. We also have t-shirts available for older kids. And last but not least is Elmo with a trach to just help normalize the situation. Elmo was picked because around the time I started putting things together in the basket, it was Sam's favorite toy and thing to watch. Like I said, each item in the kit has purpose and meaning for these families, and it's our hope that those items will comfort them and help them feel that they are not alone in their new journey. Currently, we have shipped and delivered 213 kits. If you read your program, that number has already changed since then. Those were sent off to be printed a couple weeks ago. As you can see, we are growing significantly. We went from partnering with 6 hospitals last year to 10 this year, and from 11 to 28 states. This year, we celebrated giving our 200th kit since March of 2020. What a surreal feeling that was. The requests seem to be coming in more and more. This, we believe, is due in part to our sample kit and postcard initiative we started this year. Thanks to our dedicated board, the sample kit initiative recently began and has been very successful. We started reaching out to hospitals, telling them about our organization and asking if we could send them a sample kit. It takes time to figure out who the right contact is, but when we do, when the hospitals receive a kit, they quickly want to know how they can get more. At your tables, you can see the postcard that we created for hospitals. It's universal, and the hospitals can choose to request the kit themselves or give the postcard to the families and caregivers to request the kit on their own. We've learned that each hospital has their own guidelines and ways of partnering with hospitals that are nonprofits like us. Our goals for 2026 are not much different than last year. Spreading awareness for an organization like ours takes time and effort. We know that there is no other organization out there like us. Nobody's as crazy as me, please. And knowing the impact our kids have on the families drives us to continue our mission and this need. Thank you again for coming alongside us to continue our mission. And now, it's with great pleasure I get to introduce our next speakers. our assistant director, Lynn Fields, and her husband, Tom. I met Lynn on a hot summer day sitting in my driveway on one of our brown plastic Adirondack chairs. We are connected to Chris and Carol at Jack's Basket, another great organization, who reached out to me to connect with an overwhelmed mama whose son was going through the unimaginable. I don't remember much of that conversation, I just know that I was nervous. Sometime later, I called this stranger and asked her if she wanted to be a part of the S3 Kit board that I was creating. She said yes. Sometime after that, I asked this acquaintance to come alongside me without any compensation to grow S3 Kit. Another yes. Today, she is not only my coworker, but one of my dearest friends. Thank you, Lynn, for so many reasons and for giving me those yeses. Now you get to hear the incredible story of Calvin, another one of our new initiatives, Truckin' for Trachees, or T for short. Inspired by Lynn, who is not just my crazy running friend, but someone with great grit and strength. Tom and Lynn.
Thanks, Jamie. Little did my husband know that when he married me, I would become a long-distance runner 11 years into our marriage. He jokes when he sees a runner, I wonder what they're running from. Always with a bewildered look on his face. I can't say that running makes that much more sense to him today, but I like to think that initiative like Truckin' for Trachees helps a little bit. He even has a special shirt to wear whenever he comes to cheer me on. Truckin' for Trachees was born of a desire to encourage others to use their adventure hobbies to raise awareness for S3 Kit. This past June, I completed my first T4T adventure when I hiked and ran over 38 miles on the Superior Hiking Trail for my 38th birthday. To my delight, over 40 people gave to support my efforts, and some of you are here tonight. Thank you. The even more special part of my adventure was the people who shared it with me. Just want to thank my brother, my soon-to-be sister, niece, and nephew-in-law, my mom and stepdad, and Tom, and our 4 boys who joined me that weekend. I may have even got Tom to run a couple of the miles that he shared with me on the trail. The reality is that these adventures, like life, rarely go as planned, even as we spend weeks, months, or years training for them. In life, we don't get the chance to prepare often. We are met with the unexpected and asked to go on a journey that we could have never prepared ourselves for. The high peaks and the low valleys. These are the difficult vantage points by which the families we get to serve at S3 Kit are living life from. From the lowest of valleys of medical trauma to the heights of seeing your child survive against the odds and getting pushed to a deeper strength that you thought possible. We hope that some of you will consider this joining our journey through Truckin' for Trachees. Tom and I are thankful to be able to share our journey with you, the one we didn't prepare for or expect. To do that, we need to go back to a day in November of 2015 when we found out that something was wrong with our preborn baby. The fact that he had markers for Down syndrome was no longer part of the conversation. His heartbeat was weak, and it was clear immediate intervention needed to take place. At just 25 weeks pregnant, this was terrifying news. I had no idea how early a child could be born and survive. I had no idea the implications of that survival and how it would change our lives. But God did. 3 days later, on November 6, 2015, Calvin Richard Fields was born at 1 pound, 6 ounces, and 13 inches tall. He was sedated and ventilated for 3 weeks, meaning that he would automatically earn the diagnosis of chronic lung disease, a condition that would prove almost fatal a couple of years later. After 4 months and 2 days in the hospital, Calvin made his way home to a lively household of 2 older brothers, only 1 and 3 years old at the time. Thankfully, Calvin stayed mostly healthy during those first 2.5 years, a vital task for someone born so early. It was in February of 2018 when Calvin, just under 2.5 years old at the time, became sicker than we had ever seen him. By the time we arrived at the ER, his oxygen levels were already as low as 53%. The culprit was human metapneumovirus, a bad virus by itself, but when paired with another, it can be like a lightning strike to your lungs. And Calvin had gotten struck by that lightning. Our baby was far sicker than we had realized, and he was intubated and put on a ventilator by 9 p.m. that night. It would be 6 more weeks before we would see his eyes open, or before he would respond to our touch. During those weeks, we were told, he's the sickest kid in the PICU. He's not trying to come back. We're throwing everything at him, but we don't know if any of it will work. Calvin was a miracle for surviving such an early birth, and it would take another miracle for him to survive this hospital stay. The last 2 weeks of those early days were especially cruel. Calvin was placed on an advanced form of life support called extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, or ECMO for short. His lungs had nearly completely failed, and circulating blood outside of his body and oxygenating it through a machine, therefore giving his lungs time to rest, was the final resort. I never left the hospital in those weeks. I didn't dare to be more than a floor and a 3-minute sprint away from him in case he worsened.
I should have known better than to look up at those pictures. So during this hospital stay, Calvin's brothers, Jacob and Lewis, were 5 and 3, respectively, and had the misfortune of being stuck with a solo dad who was also out of the house too much of the time. And looking back, I cannot really determine if, how we handled it was the best way. When you have a child at the hospital and more at home, you never really feel like you're in the right place. When you needed to be at the hospital, that much I know is true. Even the doctors agreed that, the amount she learned from them and her focus on Calvin was instrumental in bringing him home. For myself, I was struggling to figure out how to take care of 2 little ones at home, and the house and the bills. When Calvin went in, we had no idea if it would be 3 days or 3 months. Our church community blessed us by paying for a babysitter for as long as we would need, so I could continue to work. And was that the right call? At the time, it felt like the only call. But now my schedule was making breakfast for Jacob and Lewis, going to work, and not coming home until dinner, which would not be late, as I still had to prepare it. And thank you to everyone out there who pre-made meals for us. McDonald's for 3 months straight wouldn't have gone over well. So by the time dinner was done, we typically had time for a story and to pray. We prayed for Mama and Calvin before bed. And what little bit of time we had together would come to an end for the day. So this was our routine for much of the time. Jacob and Lewis would eat breakfast while saying goodbye to Dad for most of the day until seeing him again for the last 2 hours before saying goodnight. So, like I said, I cannot say whether or not this was really the right call. Every now and then we would shake things up a little bit by having dinner at the hospital, or Lynn and I switching places on the weekend. And by now, stress was just kind of just a way of life. I just had to work while distracted. How was Calvin doing today? How do I carefully answer the many questions Calvin's brothers asked about him and their mom? Let's keep it together during this meeting. What kind of housework can I finish before falling asleep tonight? Keep it together at home so as not to scare the kids. Will I get another emergency call from Lynn? Eventually the toll won out, and 3 months and gave me a full-on panic attack that sent me on a short visit to the ER room. And I didn't even know that was possible. I kind of thought panic attacks were when someone just hyperventilated. But when your body starts freaking out, just because it doesn't know what to do anymore, it can make for a pretty scary experience on top of everything else. It was during the weeks that Kelvin was on ECMO that we learned about a tracheostomy and why it would be a much needed step for him to survive. A tracheostomy would allow him to continue to get ventilation support while allowing him to be lifted from sedation little by little. And most importantly, it meant he could come home. There was absolutely no other option. And Calvin received his trach the first week of April 2018.
You may be wondering, since Tom and I brought home a child from the hospital with a tracheostomy, when did we receive our S3 kit? The fact is, S3 kit was not founded until 3 years after Calvin came home. At that time, S3 kit was just a dream and a prayer of Jamie Grant's to someday be able to help families like hers and like ours. What I received instead of the kit was a phone call and a personal connection with Jamie, another mother who had a child with a trach. Like Jamie, I don't remember much of what was said during that phone call, but I do remember how I felt. I felt hope, and I knew that someone had gone before me and believed in me. That we'd be okay and that we could do this impossible task. She instilled in me the phrase in your programs tonight, you can do hard things. As Calvin healed and we turned our planning to getting him home, many arrangements had to be made, one of which was getting a room in our home ready for him and all his newly acquired medical equipment and supplies. I remember sitting with Tom when our respiratory therapist from Pediatric Home Services brought our boxes and boxes of supplies and proceeded to go through them and explain what they were all for. I thought there was no way I would ever be able to manage it all. It completely filled our spare bedroom. The tower with his ventilator, feeding machine, humidifier, oximeter, and oxygen tank right next to his crib that he still needed to stay strapped to everything while he slept. The closet was filled to the brim with supplies, and an over-the-door shoe holder for the supplies we needed quick access to. A chair and a desk for the nurse that would be on duty every night, completely full. Anecdotally, this is a pivotal point for families like ours. The moment when reality sets in to the immense work, organization, and constant awareness required to take care of a medically fragile child. One of our desires at S3 Kit is to partner with agencies like Pediatric Home Services to give our kits during that overwhelming meeting where all the supplies are delivered. What a perfect time to tell them, we see you, and you can do this.
So, as Lynn alluded to, a kid coming home with a trach is no small feat. Both parents have to become professionals in taking care of a trach. And I'm not talking, read this pamphlet and take this 10-question quiz. You have to learn how to clean the trach area, CPR, how to operate all the machines, and what to do when they fail. How to replace a trach without contaminating it. And not to mention taking care of the new to us feeding tubes and machine. Most of this you have to learn and you have to demonstrate at the hospital, some of which on a real child, which is your child. The sad fact of the matter for families is, home nurses are good at their job, but every child is different. And so you have to become the head nurse of the house. And if a nurse calls in sick at 10 p.m., you become the nurse for the night. And you can't just waltz back into the hospital because you weren't paying attention. But when Calvin came home at 3.5 months, he was still dependent on his ventilator for 24 hours a day. And this meant as long as it was a 12-foot hose attached to his trach to the ventilator. And it kind of takes a little imagination to imagine what a child on that kind of device is with two young older brothers. We didn't exactly thrive in this early season. The goal was just to survive. And for Jacob and Lewis, everything changed after Calvin came home. He came home a very different boy. He was bloated from medication and much weaker from being in the bed for 3.5 months. A tube out of his neck and another into his stomach. The spare room, now his medical room, constant strangers in the form of nurses that did later become family friends. Noisy ventilators, alarming oxygen meters, beeping tubes, and hoses everywhere. So much for baby proofing. I did ask Jacob and Lewis about writing this section, how much they actually remembered from it, and thankfully they remember very little. But Lynn and I still do. And I think most people in this room can relate kind of to this next part of just, once you get married, all of your free time kind of disappears, and in a good way. You're just doing stuff together, and your schedules fill up. Then you have your first kids, and you realize you had a lot more free time than you originally thought. But it's now sucked up by these little poop diaper filling machines. But even with multiple kids, you find a way to be with them and for them to be special. If you're busy, there's a good chance they know little interruptions are okay now and then. You can't really do that for the other kids when an alarm is going off and your wife is calling from across the house because your son's destatted. When she's focused on keeping his oxygen up, while you're looking for which of 10 different things could possibly be going wrong. Mom and dad time with us don't exist in moments like this. Even when you are present with them, we have mental timers for oxygen tanks, medicine schedules, and equipment batteries. Going out is more than just diaper. So you have to just start looking for low pleasures, in the same way enjoy the sun more on a cold day. Kits like that ones S3 are providing are just one more ray on a very cold day. And for some parents out there with no extended family nearby or few connections, it may be the only ray that they see in a while. How hard is it to go through something like that if you feel like you're the only ones doing so? S3 Kit is helping parents see that others have gone before them, and we may not want to, but we can do this too.
While many kids will have a trach for years, like Jamie's son Sam, the minimum amount of time for having a trach is usually a year. Fortunately, this was the case for our Calvin, because he did not have any physiological condition where he needed a safe airway. He just needed to stay healthy through the winter and give his lungs time to heal. As you can imagine, the totality of this season of our lives was very traumatic. And I bring that up because medical trauma is real trauma, and every family who brings home a child from the hospital with a trach has and is currently experiencing a high level of stress and trauma. We believe that our actions with S3 Kit will make a difference in intercepting the trauma these families face. It's not something we can measure, but it's something that we hope and pray for the recipients of our kits. The last thing I want to share is the power and presence of Jesus when we were at our lowest. That God is so much bigger than we could have ever known him to be. Just to quickly give him praise for the things that he did, I want to share how he brought someone to finish the renovation of Calvin's room. We started before he even got sick, before we knew it would be his room. How he provided a babysitter for our other 2 boys and raised up a small group in our church to pay her for 2 months of work. how ministry at our church bought us a beautifully catered Easter meal that coincided with the day Calvin was taking off of ECMO. A pastor who showed up almost every day just to sit with me and say the prayers that I was too weak and wounded to say myself. How a complete stranger dropped off a devotional to the hospital that became a lifeline to my faith. The fact that Tom's trip to the emergency room ended up just being a panic attack and nothing more serious or longer lasting. The countless meals, donations, phone calls, texts, verses. He is so much bigger than we thought. And in the midst of it all, a perfect and healthy pregnancy, resulting in Roman Wellsfield joining our family in May of 2019, just 3 weeks after Calvin was successfully decannulated and we officially joined the Naked Neck Club.
And to wrap things up, we would like to dedicate this presentation to our 4 boys, Jacob, Lewis, Calvin, and Roman. Jacob and Lewis, you guys may not remember much of it. You guys stood by and watched the story unfold with grit, perseverance, patience, and deepest love for us and your brothers. Calvin, we want to change you for the world. Though it pains us that you've suffered so much, it is what made you unapologetically you. And Roman, you are exactly the child God knew we needed at the end of such a crazy season. You love deeply and you care so much for those around you and your amazing big little brother to Calvin. Boys, though our journey has not been easy or expected, it's been ours to keep, and we are so thankful to have it with you. If given the choice, we would choose you guys to be head and here.
Thank you for your time tonight, for coming to this event and listening to our story. It's an honor to work with S3 Kit and get to help families like ours. We don't know every aspect of S3 Kit's future and what God will do, but we are so thankful that you're a part of it and you're here tonight. Thank you.